Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Well, good... Oh, that's very loud. Good afternoon, good evening and welcome. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday for another edition of the Irish programme Live on Eire. Thank you for tuning our way. While we're doing the thank yous, can I say a big thank you to Bob James. Thanks a million, Bob, looking after us for the last hour. Look forward to your company again tomorrow between 6 and 7 for Spain Today. And of course, we will hear Bob's dulcet tones throughout the day with the Spanish news starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, just after Dave joins us for Daybreak. So there we go. Anyway, what have we got for you today on the programme? Things are a little bit different this week because I'm not in the same studio that I would normally be in, but that's all right. I'm fine and comfortable where I am, and it's all good. I've got two great guests. Well, sorry, I've got one. I just hope he's listening. James Lawless will be joining me in the first hour of the programme. Now, you met James, I think it was last February, talking about his books and always has a Spanish influence in there. Well, earlier this year, he released a book called Letters to Jude. So I'm going to be talking to James Lawless about that. An interesting book. I haven't finished it. I started it all right. And but that doesn't preclude me from actually having a conversation about it, because we're not going to give away the plot or anything like that. It's just a case of finding out about it and where it's all at. So James will be joining me in this hour of the programme to talk about his book, Letters to Jude. And in the second hour of the programme, George Lee will be joining me. I haven't spoken to George in a few weeks on the programme. So we're going to have our G2 Summit. Yes, and we'll find out what people are talking about in Ireland at the moment. So there you have it. I have a little bit of unfinished business as well, because I'm ditzy and old age is catching up with me and I'm losing the plot, basically. I forgot to give you the answer to our mystery voice last week, and this is what she was sounding like.
I think it depends on your makeup. It depends what kind of person you are, you know. Depends what your ambitions were.
That was Sinead O'Connor, as everybody knew. Everybody that sent in a text or an email or an entry to the programme was absolutely 100% correct. Sinead O'Connor. I don't have a mystery voice for you today. It's all to do with technical stuff. And so I'm sorry, I don't have that today for you. But we've got plenty more happening on the programme. I've got some good music for you coming up between now and 9 o'clock as well. We'll give you the contact details to the programme again very shortly. But let's take a listen to this. It's brand new music from Niamh Dunn.
Well, I've crossed every mountain and I've woven every stream. I spent my days a-roving round the roads of Tralee. I have many stories and perhaps I will avail, and I'm sure you'll not deny me as I tell to you my tale. My Nancy, she is far away and lives beyond the sea. My heart is sore to marry her, but it may never be. I met her in the summertime, my darling Nancy Brown, and we spent our days a-courting as I rove from town to town. The rocks fall the derry, oh, rocks fall the derry, oh, fall all the day. The rocks fall the derry, oh, we'll marry in the morning. When first I chanced upon her, oh, she wore the finest clothes. Her smile, it did beguile me, and her eyes were black as sloes. She had such a manner, held her shoulders straight with pride, and I knew this girl with ringlet curls, oh, she would be my bride. My darling, may I follow you? I'll buy a ring of gold. Will you take my hand, my love, and hear what I propose? My heart belongs to you, she said, but this can never be, for I'm promised for another love all in America. The rocks fall the derry, oh, rocks fall the derry, oh, fall all the day. The rocks fall the derry, oh, we'll marry in the morning. Across the sea, and first I land in Amsterdam, so far from old Tralee. I drank down beer and brandy as our captain did us guide on our ship bound for America across the ocean wide. I asked if she would marry me and home we could return. Oh, Nancy dear, for many years my heart for you did yearn. Oh, and yes, she said, now let us wed and follow o'er the tide. By morning time, oh, you'll be mine and I will be your bride. Hey, rocks fall the dairy, oh, rocks fall the dairy, oh, fall down the Dane. Hey, rocks fall the dairy, oh, we'll marry in the morning.
Now this couple, they are married, in Kerry they do dwell, with a cabin down in Bentry town, so far as I may tell. And they were so two-hearted when she landed on the quay, when I made a met her over on the roads of Old Tralee.
Hey, rocks fall the dairy, oh, rocks fall the dairy, oh, fall down the Dane. Hey, rocks fall the dairy, oh, we'll marry in the morning. Hey, rocks fall the dairy, oh, rocks fall the dairy, oh, fall down the Dane. Hey, rocks fall the dairy, oh, we'll marry in the morning.
Isn't it nice? As soon as I heard that during the week, I said, that is the opening track for next Wednesday's Live on Eire. And there it is for you. Niamh Dunn, brand new single from her. And I hope you enjoyed that. Will I take a break now? Yes, I will take a break now. Before I do that, if you would like to send a message to me, our WhatsApp is up and running and is cranked up and is flying it. +34 645 99 67 95 is the number for that if you want to send a text message, all right? If you would like to send an email, it's studio@tre.radio. And if you'd like to we can't take calls at the moment. We're rejigging certain things, so no, we can't take calls anymore. So it's all the one. So you can send me a WhatsApp or an email if you would like to do so. Let's do a very quick break. Come back to me in just a moment, please. And I will be talking to you about the rail line between Foynes and Limerick. And also, if you've been a Horslips fan, a Horslips fan, if you're Irish, you'll know what I mean. I've got news for you on that too.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Now, I want to say a big thank you as well to Patricia Traynor. I was with Patricia yesterday and we recorded another series of stories. We're not finished the current series yet. We've still got 2 more of those to go. And we also have a Christmas story for the Christmas programme. And I was just looking, this night, 5 weeks, will be our Christmas programme, the 21st of December on the Wednesday, because Christmas falls on the following Sunday on that one. So yeah, amazing, isn't it? So yeah, we have our Christmas story recorded from Patricia and a new series. And that series, I would imagine, will start in January, more than likely. And we'll see if we go from there. PJ Curtis, I went to see after that and had a lovely couple of hours with PJ as always. And PJ, thank you very much as well for your hospitality and for receiving us yesterday afternoon. Lovely to see you and talk to you and be able to swap stories of things that have been happening since we last saw each other. He and I were in Ireland together for a number of months. We never saw each other and we live about 25 minutes away from each other. Anyway, it was just all to do with circumstances. Work has started on reopening the Foynes Limerick rail line as a freight service as part of a €104 million upgrade, which could possibly see a passenger service also return to the 164-year-old rail line in the future. Clearing of vegetation along the 42-kilometre track has commenced and major construction work on the line begins in the coming weeks, which will see the old track removed. The installation of new rail track and sleepers, upgrading road infrastructure at level crossings, rehabilitating bridges and culverts, and the renewal of line-side fencing. Now, the line itself, which serves Patrickswell, Adair, Askeaton and Foynes, originally opened in 1858 as a passenger line but closed in 1963. While freight services continued to 2001, the old line fell into disrepair and has remained inactive for over 20 years. early this week. Over 42 kilometres of new track arrived at Foynes Port as part of the infrastructure to begin work on the project. It's anticipated that it will take 2 years to complete the first phase, estimated to cost €64 million. Phase 2 will see the provision of a signalling system for the route, CCTV level crossings, trains, communication systems and track connections, and upgrades at Limerick and Foynes Yard. Work due to be completed by 2025. Now, Eire Northern, which is Irish Rail, has said this significant upgrade of the line will facilitate rail freight services, but will not preclude the possibility of passenger services being introduced on the line in the future. But this would require further infrastructure upgrades and funding. It also aligns with the Shannon Foynes Port Company's recently launched 2041 master plan, which aims to transform the port into a hub for the production of giant ocean-sized or ocean-based green wind turbines off the Shannon estuary, and as a location for the production and transport of green energies like hydrogen and ammonia. A good rail service serving business and logistics at the port is an essential part of that plan. There have been a number of calls for this rail line to reopen to facilitate stronger freight transport using interconnected rail and ship services for the movement of goods rather than roads, satisfying a number of EU, national and regional objectives around transport and climate objectives. There is also the Ryder Cup coming to Eire in 2027, and the provision of a passenger rail service using this line has been called for as a very useful transport link, as many more people may choose to use public rail services instead of car transport. The reopening of this section of rail line is part of a much wider ambitious Limerick rail network planned for the next decade, which will see new suburban stations at Moyross, Raheen, Duradoyle and Ballysimon to facilitate the movement of workers to industrial estates and these locations. So there we go. Good news, and I reckon anybody living in that area will be very happy to hear that. Now, there's a story that I have seen nowhere except the Irish Examiner today. I heard no mention of it, and I was talking to PJ yesterday, as I mentioned, and I thought he would have known about this story. But reporting in today's Irish Examiner, Ed Power reports that tonight at the Ulster Hall in Belfast, Ireland's original dancehall sweethearts take one final twirl. Horselips, the long-haired psychedelic warriors of 70s Celtic pop, play what is being billed as their last ever gig. It promises to be an evening high on emotion and supercharged with nostalgia. The band is formally stopping in Belfast, says the singer and bassist Barry Devlin. He'll be performing with keyboardist and flautist Jim Lockhart, a fellow Horselips founder member, and with friends of the group Ray Thean and Fiach Moriarty. The rest of the classic Horselips lineup have already retired. It's last gig time, Devlin says. Devlin turns 76 next week, and at the Belfast performance this evening, he will receive the Oh Yeah Legend Status Award, which is part of the Northern Ireland Music Prize ceremony. Power writes that it is half a century since Horselips wove from thin air the genre of Celtic rock, having manifested in the literary underground of early 1970s Dublin. Members of this quintet of former ad executives were the conquering heroes Irish culture desperately needed. They were hugely and immediately successful too, with hits from like Durag Durham. From 1973 and Trouble with a capital T from 1976. They had a lot more hits along the way as well, just like this particular one. You have heard it before on the programme. In fact, you've heard it on other programmes that I've stood in for or sat in for other presenters. Let's take a listen to Horselips.
See him driving those golden nails that hold together the silver bars. Then one day gonna take us to the stars, 'cause he's the man who built America. See him walking that golden wire, 1,000,000 miles from his starting place. See the world reflected in his face, 'cause he's the man who built America. You colored kids on the borderline, and all you golden children of the sun, to you, each and every one, 'cause he's the man who
Playing their very last gig ever tonight in Belfast, Horslips. That's if Ed Power from the Irish Examiner is to be believed. And why wouldn't he be believed? That's a song that's called The Man Who Built America. Wonderful song. You'll be hearing lots more about Horslips and lots more Horslips music on Live on Eire as we go into the future. James Lawless is going to be talking to me about his book. In fact, James Lawless is going to be reading extracts from his book as well. Just after we take a quick commercial break, please don't go anywhere.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
I'm looking at my mother through a window in the act of dying. She is lifting a cup of tea to her lips. The flash of lightning strikes and kills her. As the lightning strikes her, it registers her picture instantaneously on the pane of glass. The lightning passes through a tree outside, and the passing of her soul, and burns the tree down. My dear Leo, I hope you don't mind my writing to you after such a long, long time, but my thoughts of you never faded. I just had to write when I heard the sudden death of your mother. It must have been a dreadful blow. I knew how close you were to her. Freddie Crichton conveyed the news. He had my phone number from when I au paired for him of my parents' home in Sevilla. When he called, I was polite to him, but I didn't tell him much of my business. He hinted at the terrible ordeal we suffered that night in his house. He was trying to get me to describe it as if he wanted me to relive the trauma inflicted on us by those creatures. He called them dogs. You know, the way the dogs do it, he said, making me feel most uncomfortable. I asked him, did they ever catch the assailants? He said, what would be the point of that? You know, the cops here never catch anyone. They just spend their time asking the public to solve their crimes. It was he who suggested I write to you. He seemed so concerned. Friends that go back the furthest, he said, but I never knew you two were close. In fact, I would have thought the opposite. Anyway, age can mellow people, and maybe that's what happened to him. He told me how you were shattered by the unexpectedness of her death. My poor, poor Leo. And that I would be a tonic, he said. Oh, how he goes on. He tried it on with me, you know, more than once. But what chance did he have when my heart was smitten by you? However, he did mention your wife in very favourable terms. So, Leo, I should not be talking like this. Not now that you are a married man. He remembers a pleasantly cool evening in midsummer in his prenuptial days with Leo. They had come from the theatre and were seated at the bar of the Royal Dublin Hotel. A man with a leering face. What disguise did he wear? A mask of Rhesus sardonicus, unsteadily wriggled into a high bar stool beside them. He gulped down a double whiskey and touched Lil on the back of her exposed neck. Was it accidental? Her shoulder. He remembers expecting it to recoil, but no. It remained motionless, and she said nothing, but dangled the beads on her necklace, and he could have sworn a fleeting smile crossed her lips. Had she known him? Was he from the play, he wondered, one of the casts from the Commedia dell'arte of Lolita, which they had just seen at the Peacock, which he had enjoyed, but Lil found an awful bore. A little later he got off his high stool and falteringly, the rhymer, there's many a slip between cup and lip, touched the back of Lil's neck again, near the clasp of her pendant, this time trying to make it look like an accident, brushing as he struggled with the arms of his white linen jacket. Where did he think he was? In some hot colonial outpost, and the cool evening outside. He embarrassedly caught my eye, that bald head lurking under his fedora. Where had I seen it? Sorry, he said, and his accent seemed familiar, coming half-muffled from behind the mask, and yet disguised enough to prevent me from pinpointing it exactly. I was about to take umbrage when Lil's hand went out to restrain me. Did you know him? I asked Lil afterwards. Who was he? Just a man, she said. Oh, Leo, I hope you are happy. There are so many things I want to tell you, and one thing in particular which I don't know if I should ever tell you. Please write to me. It all depends on whether you answer this letter. Just look at it. I didn't even write in paragraphs. I was so nervous. With sincere sympathy, Bernarda.
James Lawless, you're very welcome to the programme again. Lovely to talk to you.
Likewise, Leo.
Ger.
Oh, sorry, I said Leo. I'm so in the novel. Sorry, Ger. Leo was in my head.
Of course,
sorry
of course. That is an extract, the opening extract from your new book, your latest book, Letters to Jude. Nice to have you back on the programme, and listening to you read that. I've read some of it already, as I explained to you. Haven't got to the finish of it as yet, but that shouldn't preclude us from talking about it. It's been on release for a couple of months. How is it going for you?
Well, this is my most experimental novel, so I wasn't expecting huge sales from it. Like, the previous novel I think I was talking to you about was called The Spanish Au Pair,
mm-hmm.
which was a fairly straightforward sort of literary thriller in a way, and that did well and got lots of reviews. Relatively speaking. So this one is slower to take off. I didn't have a formal launch for it, but people who have read it, and the few reviews I've got so far, they have admitted that it's a tougher read, let's say, than previous works.
Yeah.
And but the general consensus is that it's worth plowing. I shouldn't maybe use the word. It might be off-putting, but it's worth going to the end because there is a lot of satisfaction in it. I found to me it's the most satisfying novel for me because. Mm-hmm. In it, I find most meaning. Like the other novels have meaning, and I think all novels should show or throw some light on the human condition. But this one was actually in gestation for nearly 13 years before I actually turned it into a novel. And it really is a compendium of all the philosophical thoughts and intellectual thoughts that I've sort of garnished over my lifetime. So in that sense, it's perhaps the novel that has most wisdom in it, if I can be presumptuous to say that, and that has most of myself in it. And perhaps it's sort of a book too that I think sometimes you can dip in and out of.
Yeah.
And I find myself just before I was coming to talk to you, dipping into it, and you can read different pieces of it in different sections because it's not totally plot driven, although there is a plot. Mm-hmm. And, but the main plot, I suppose, is the thoughts, the ideas, and the words, if that can be said.
So who's Leo?
Leo Lampkin is an ailing, middle-aged librarian, and the novel starts off, as you heard there, with the sudden news that his mother had died very, very young. And it was a total jolt, like a lightning strike to him as well as to his mother. And he was totally taken off guard. And this was put into the newspapers, and it got to a girl in Spain. And she wrote to Leo, and it turned out that Leo had a liaison with her when she was an au pair in Ireland. And there was some dreadful occurrence that happened in the chief librarian's house, this guy called Crichton, mm-hmm. Who was a bit of a weirdo. And seemingly what happened was that they were forced to engage in a terrible act. Mm-hmm. And later on, she wrote to him because she heard of the sudden death of his mother. Mm-hmm. And a correspondence develops between them in which she reveals that he is actually the father of their child, Juanito. Mm-hmm. And she was so shocked with the thing that happened to her that she went back to her own parents in Seville because she thought Leo would not be interested in her. They were quite young at the time. Mm-hmm. So this happens to parallel with the fact that Leo had actually married, and the marriage is not a very good marriage. It's a childless marriage, which doesn't necessarily mean doesn't have to be good, but he finds his wife Lil to be rather cold, and he finds that he has no emotional bonding with her, and then this emotional bonding is replaced then by the correspondence between the Spanish girl, who is Bernarda Rodriguez, and to try and disguise her name, because Lil starts to cotton on to what's going on. He actually changes her name for the purpose of the letters to Jude, which is a gender neutral name, and he thinks that would be suitable. And the novel is very experimental because it goes beyond the mere letters, because I think one of the points of the novel is the limitations of communication, really, between us. So we've only got 26 letters in which we have to express all our thoughts. And I think this questions the whole limitations of human communication. This is my effort in the novel. And the actual communications between them breaks down as the letters themselves break down in the novel. And they resort to telepathy. And so the novel takes in lots of different forms and experimental forms. That's probably why it could be a tougher read than the straightforward genre novels.
No, you're forgetting, of course, that we've moved into a different technological era. So we have our 26 letters available to us. But don't forget the emoji.
I must not. Yeah, emoji.
They're also there. Talking of that, and the words that are used in it and how it's structured. Declan Kybert, in reviewing it, said that you made terrific use of language, and language is a very important part of it. So, talk to us about the language in the book.
The language, of course, is infused with all my readings, essentially. It's like an encyclopedic gathering together of all the stuff that I've learned in my life, basically, because I have a degree in Spanish and I also have a degree in Irish. And I also very interested in Latin and things like that from school. And all these languages suffuse the novel. And it's like as if to say one language is not sufficient to express all our thoughts, So it's very polyglot. And so the language itself, though, is limited. And, as I say, even though other languages are different alphabets, they're all basically in common. And they all break down. And, there's sort of a tragic, the homo tragicus and the homo ludens, as they say, is mixed quite often in the novel. And there's this idea of the letters, not standing up to what they should be. And they go on strike because they feel they're exploited by the fictive author. There's an author, a lot of people interject in the novel, including the author, who is James Francis. Okay. And he's a fictional author, And they go on strike against James Francis, saying they're exploiting them. Particularly the vowels. And, so this causes the breakdown of the letters, which some people see as the breakdown of society, perhaps. And what happens then is there's a big revolution. And I better not tell you what happens at the end of the revolution. But so language itself, if you like, is being questioned all the time. For example, ancient man, as you know, went out to collect berries and brought them back to the cave. Whereas Leo is a guy who is looking for illuminations all the time. And he goes out on his quotidian walks and comes back with ideas, instead of berries. And it's a pursuit, really, of the function of the human being in the world. That's basically, I know it's a very broad, very sweeping thing to say, but that's what Leo is trying to understand what his role is, and he's ailing as well, and he tries to put that aside as he progresses in a very ordinary way. Like, I mean, I think the world today, they say the world today is so different to, say, the primitive times, because man, like, say, if you take Homer and the Odyssey, the modern Odyssey is like, say, Joyce's Ulysses. It wasn't going out to do marvelous physical deeds, but it's all on the inner side. We can all be heroes in our own minds. So that brings up things like dreams and mares, which occur in the novel, which he calls mares, which are nightmares. All of these things, go back to Freud and that. And Freud maintained that, very often we learn about our real selves through the irrational parts rather than the rational parts of ourselves, And I remember in the preface I wrote that I was talking about, say, if you're at, say, a reading of a book or something, and people make their comments and it's all in nicely clipped sentences. But very often we're not revealing the inner thoughts of that person. Like the person might have a grudge against the reader, for example, or the person mightn't like what is written but won't say it. So the truth is very often hidden in our so-called civilized letter communications with people, with each other. And I think that's what the novel is exploring, trying to explore anyway.
13 years putting this together. Man changes a lot in 13 years. So from when you started this until you finished it, how much did you have to redo, or did you have to redo, or did you add to the story now to reflect maybe something, that you have learned in 13 years or unlearned in 13 years?
It's, Ger, well, over that period, of course, there's a huge change in technology. And it sort of really justified what I was trying to write, because what I was trying to write was forecasting the way things would go with all our multi-thoughts. For example, Joyce has said that we often have two thinks at a time. Thinks, meaning thinking. And, other writers have even said we could even have more thoughts at a time. So many thoughts can go in our head. We're talking about one thing, but another thing is lurking in behind our heads. And this thing is really developed with the mobile phones, for example. And people, they say that we've only 6 or 7 second limitation of concentration now. And there's some viewpoints that perhaps our deep concentration or contemplation even is being affected by this technology. The idea of being able to concentrate for a length of time on something. So I had to rethink a lot of that. But it really only reinforced what I was actually trying to do, which was, when somebody would speak, like even at the beginning of the novel, the girl Bernard is writing, and then it sets off a thought pattern in Leo's mind, and he thinks of the first time he met Lil at the Peacock Theatre, or when you're at the Peacock Theatre. So it sets off other thoughts. And this now, of course, is really carried very much so in modern times now with the mobile phone.
Yep. Don't tell me how it ends, because I want to get there, and I'm sure listeners who will read it want to get there. But is there a happy ending?
Well, I think there's a sad ending, but a happy ending as well. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. The name of the book is Letters to Jude by James Lawless. And James, you're going to read another extract for us. And before you do that, can I say thank you for joining me on the program today. It's lovely to have you back, and you're always welcome. You know that. And listeners can get their grubby little hands on this by logging onto our website as well. It's for sale on our website at TRE.radio. So if they want to get it, they can get it right there. James, you're going to finish with a piece for us.
Like I said, JF is the fictional name of the writer James Francis. JF. When do you count backwards to go upwards? Oh, reader. Let me see now. Wait. When do you count upwards to go to the backstroke? JF. Backwards to go upwards. Reader. Oh, I've got it. At a rocket launch. Now, riddle me this. When do you count backwards to go forward? As the day darkens, darkening fears make me shudder. I must try to contact Mam again. She may counsel me. Was it last night's alcohol or something deeper? I am a deep, lonely well. People coming and going, shadowy exteriors, far removed from the well. I saw the comely maiden again gaze from her oriel window. She gave me the glad eye as I passed by, ascending the lampless lane. The grassy verge above is black with 3 sentries standing guard. Dogs or wolves? Only bushes. JF. What is it with English writers to keep beating about the bush? Mind tricks. Fear stalks the unfamiliar. Not as bad as the man who mistook his wife for a hat. What is your greatest fear, Jude? Mine is the fear of being dependent on another. The last time, convalescing, reader, was it a blood discharge? Sympathetic critic, he won't say, maybe later. Tied up in a hospital bed and I cannot open the knots. Better get up, I say. No use lying here. Better to tell the truth somewhere else. My cries are unheard. There is nobody about. JF. Counting years in BC. The nurse's starched skirt swished as she hurried by. I am on my own, helplessly. Reader, Leo can be too whiny at times. And tied in knots, scream like the man in the Iron Mask must have screamed. It would be nice to die for a while, to hear one's plaudits, if any, uttered, an obituary read. What would they say? Must achieve something, to be talked about. And then the sort of person you were. They will say this man was afraid of his own mind, and the body's debility, pinning him down, stuck to a spot. I opened and closed after me the door of the tomb house, words and reassurances longing to hear. I asked Lil to speak to me. Any old word at all will do, I said, just to acknowledge that I am here. But no word came from her, and the pressure on my chest felt so great that I could not lie in bed any longer. How some people can live within the silence of themselves, but I could not. The conversations with my mother when I was a boy made me take communication between people for granted. And I never thought in my adult life I would cry out at night for the want of a human word, a sound, an echo. I wandered out into the garden. I knew what I was doing, ruining the morrow before it began, but at least it was not suffocating out here in the cold night air. I looked up at the moon, unmoved. Reader, and what is your greatest fear, Mr. Francis? JF, that I will be just a painter of moustaches, a stirrer of porridge. Reader, perhaps your influence is not ripe enough for the age that's in it. Sympathetic critic, like a ploughed field, ready for the seed.
Leave your keys if you're not coming home. You packed your bags full of letting go. You were moving in, now you're moving on. There's no getting used to you being gone. You were down, now you're giving up. Just a false start if you're quitting on us. Another year, just another lie. Wish you'd call so I could say goodbye. Let you know I'll wait for you every night. If you ever wanna fall in love, if you ever wanna bet on us, if you ever wanna be my one, I'll be waiting. If you ever want one more night, if you ever wanna make things right, if you ever wanna change your mind, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. Never thought that you'd be giving up. 'Cause with all the claiming, you're tired and you fell alone. Baby, if you don't cross the line, you'll end up right back where I'm standing. And then you'll know I'll wait for you every night. If you ever wanna fall in love, if you ever wanna bet on us, if you ever wanna be my one, I'll be waiting. If you ever want one more night, if you ever wanna make things right, if you ever wanna change your mind, I'll be waiting. If you ever wanna bet on us, if you ever wanna be my one, I'll be waiting. If you ever want one more night, if you ever wanna make things right, if you ever wanna change your mind, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting.
Not to take from how fabulous that is, but there's a touch of Dermot Kennedy in there, isn't there? That comes from a man by the name of Cian Ducrot, D-U-C-R-O-T. I'll be waiting his brand new single. I enjoyed my conversation with James Lawless. I hope you did too, and I thought it was lovely to introduce it and to come out of the interview with James and an extract from the book, which is called Letters to Jude. All right. As I said, during the interview, it's available on our website, TRE.radio, if you would like to get your hands on it. All righty. Okay. Let's do a quick break. Come back to me just after that. And we're going to be talking about Galway.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
TRE, your voice in Spain.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
There you are. All right, still there. Fair play to you. Stay with me until 9 if you can, please. We'll be going to the Sky News Centre for news at the top of the hour, but that'll only be for 2 minutes, and I'll be back after that. Coming up on the second hour of the programme, George Lee will be joining me for a G2 summit. Something to look forward to. Summit to look forward to. See what I did there? Talking of looking forward to things, I've told you before, Mick Handley has a brand new album. I've played a couple of tracks from the album, and I'm going to be talking to Mick next week about the album itself, which is called Marathon. And I'm looking forward to that conversation because it's always a joy to talk to Mick Handley, a fellow Limerick man, of course. Aye, and George, of course, being from Limerick. In fact, actually, they're from the same place. Anyway, so that's Mick Handley next week on the programme. And I've been telling you that I was hoping to arrange a conversation with Paul Brady. And that is happening. And that will be happening on the 30th of November. All right. So next week, it's Mick Handley. And the following week, it is Paul Brady. Looking forward to both of those chats. I'm also going to try and do a little piece on a few of the Christmas markets that are happening around Ireland in the run-up to Christmas. As I mentioned a little earlier, we only have 5 weeks to Christmas now. So, interesting. We'll do that. Senior staff at University of Galway are this week presenting the college authorities with detailed statistics on grades awarded to students over the past 3 years. The presentations by the heads of the university's main academic departments, known as colleges, to the university's deputy president and registrar, Paul O'Doherty, are part of an investigation initiated after data published 2 months ago found significant grade inflation at universities across the country, including at Galway. Now, the Higher Education Authority data showed a more than 23% rise in recent years in the number of students graduating from Irish third-level institutions with first-class honours. In relation to University of Galway, it found that more than 40% of students across all courses were achieving first-class honours compared to just 24% in 2015 and 32% in 2019. The level of grade inflation exposed in the HEA data caused great concern throughout the sector, with one senior college source telling RTE News that there was consternation. Wow, consternation, that's a big word. University of Galway asked all of its colleges and schools to compile detailed statistics and information relating to grades awarded over the past 3 academic years. Deputy President and Registrar, Professor O'Doherty, has overarching responsibility for academic strategy, academic promotions and academic quality at the university. The review focuses on the 3-year period affected by the pandemic, when third-level teaching and learning suffered unprecedented upheaval. Consternation there was. This included the replacement of in-person examinations with continuous assessments and open book exams, where students were given questions to answer at home within a short and set period of time. Research shows that students tend to perform more strongly in such environments. A spokesperson for University of Galway told RTE News it's best practice in a university to continually review performance and student outcomes. Responding to the publication of the HEA data in September, The university said that trends and changes in the overall distribution of grades were monitored routinely by its colleges and programme boards and were annually reviewed at university level. We'll see how the outcome of that will do. Going to stay with Galway because a Galway musician has been selected as the winner of a prestigious international competition that recognises banjo playing skills. I love the banjo. I do. I think it's the most magnificent instrument. Enda Scahill has been named as the 2022 recipient of the Steve Martin Banjo Prize. The award was launched by the actor and comedian back in 2010 to promote the instrument and to honour the variety of music styles associated with it. Mr. Scahill is a member of the Wee Banjo 3, and you've heard them on the programme before, and a 4-time All-Ireland champion. He specialises in the tenor banjo and has toured and recorded extensively in recent years. He was selected as the winner of the award by judges who described his playing as representing excellence in 4-string Irish banjo traditions. Enda Scahill, congratulations. And this is how good he is. And this is how good he is. I hate when something doesn't work like that. Oh. And this is how good he is. It's not playing for me. Oh, but you love it. That mighty. That's Enda Scahill. Congratulations to Enda on the award that he's after winning, and that is the Steve Martin Banjo Award. Well done to him. You know, in the British Parliament, you have the Speaker of the House. Well, in Ireland, in Dáil Éireann, we have a Speaker as well. He's called the Ceann Comhairle, and his deputy would be the Las Ceann Comhairle. When I see that Las Ceann Comhairle, Catherine Connolly has told the Dáil that she has written to independent TD Mark McSherry for what she called an unjustifiable and unfair attack on her integrity as chair. during a row last week. Mark McSharry, that's hard to say, isn't it? You may know, applied for reinstatement in the Fianna Fáil party, and then basically there was a bit of hassle and a bit of trouble, and he was basically saying that he wasn't wanted and things were being made up and inquiries and things. So he said, here, you can keep it, lads. So he went off and became an independent. So that's been very much in the news in the last 2 weeks. Well, Miss Connolly said that Mr. McSharry alleged that she was discriminatory towards him and other members. The Dáil was suspended last Wednesday when the Sligo Leitrim TD refused to accept a ruling from Miss Connolly that he was out of order and that he should resume his seat. Mr. McSharry accused the Las Ceann Comhairle of not giving him adequate speaking time. Well, today, Miss Connolly told TDs that correspondence has been sent from her to Mr. McSharry. He won't get a wink of sleep tonight. No, I'd say worrying about that. I don't think so. We're going to news now very shortly. And after that, we're back with the second part of the programme. I hope that you can stay with me. Our WhatsApp is open as always at +34 645 99 67 95. Or you can send an email if you'd like to do that to studio@tre.radio. Be more than happy to hear from you anytime you like.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
You're welcome back and thank you for staying with me today. The government, just as I was coming on air, I saw that the government has agreed to, the Irish government that is, to the introduction of a new national living wage to replace the minimum wage by 2026. It'll be phased in over a 4-year period starting next year and will be set at 60% of the hourly median wage. In 2023, it's estimated that 60% of median earnings could equate to approximately €13.10 per hour. The minimum wage would increase by 80 cent from the 1st of January 2023 to €11.30 per hour. And this will be followed by gradual increases from the minimum wage reaches 60% of hourly median earnings. In 2021, there were 164,000 people earning the national minimum wage. Once the living wage has come into effect in 2026, subject to an assessment of the impact of the change, the Low Pay Commission will advise on the practicalities of gradually increasing the targeted threshold towards 66% of the hourly median wage. Extensive research and consultation took place, including with employer and worker representative groups, unions and the public, in order to ensure we introduce the living wage in a way which will benefit workers whilst also being manageable for businesses, said Taoiseach and Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Leo Varadkar. It's important to get the balance right, he said. The living wage is defined as the minimum amount people need to live and take part in Irish society. The Living Wage Technical Group, the LWTG, which is supported by trade unions and charities, said last month that the hourly living wage rate should increase to €13.85 per hour to reflect the rising cost of living. So there we go. As I said, that's news that broke just before or just as I was coming on air this morning. There it is. I wanted to find this and tell you about it because I'm sure you'll be interested. And you know what? It's no mean achievement. Daniel O'Donnell, we haven't mentioned Daniel in a while, has thanked his fans after his latest album debuted at number 16 in the UK album charts, the 35th consecutive year that he has achieved chart success in Britain. That's impressive. The Donegal man's latest record, I Wish You Well, is the 5th highest new entry in this week's British countdown in a week of stiff competition from Drake, Taylor Swift, Harry Styles, Ed Sheeran and Arctic Monkeys. He's in very good company. In the CD-only chart, he has also hit number 5 ahead of Swift and the Beatles. The singer is currently in Branson, Missouri. And he sent well wishes to his fans, saying that he is delighted to be back in the UK charts and that he can't believe that over the last 35 years, he's had an album in the top 40 each year. He thanked his fans who have been so loyal and supportive and helping the album to do so well. It is, he said, an exciting time for him as he is now back touring and is looking forward to meeting his fans again. The singer has announced dates for his upcoming Irish tour, a 13-day national tour in 2023, which kicks off on the 11th of August next in Athlone, culminating at the Cork Opera House on the 30th of August next year. You know what has to happen. There's no point trying to fight it. Here he is, a track from that very album.
Well, I love the way I'm wrapped around your little finger, and I love the way you take control of me. You know I'll do anything that you want me to. Now I can tell I'm under a spell of loving you. I'm not one for words, I keep my feelings deep inside, but you can read my face, you know what's on my mind. I can't control myself, feels like make-believe. Your lovin's got me in a state of disbelief. Well, I love the way I'm wrapped around your little finger, and I love the way you take control of me. You know I'll do anything that you want me to. Now I can tell I'm under a spell of loving you. Is this a dream? Are you just a fantasy? Is this for real? Am I loving casualty? I hope it's true, 'cause it would only break my heart. If you were to play a game, my world would fall apart. Well, I love the way I'm wrapped around your little finger, and I love the way you take control of me. You know I'll do anything that you want me to. Now I can tell I'm under a spell of loving you. And I love the way I'm wrapped around your little finger, and I love the way you take control of me. Oh, you know I'll do anything that you want me to. Now I can tell I'm under a spell of loving you. Yeah, you know I'll do anything that you want me to. Now I can tell I'm under a spell of loving you. Yes, I can tell I'm under a spell of loving you.
Daniel O'Donnell, and Under the Spell, or Under a Spell of Loving You. And that's a track from his current album, which is titled I Wish You Well. It's gone into the British charts number 16 this week. 35th consecutive year that he's achieved chart success in Britain. What a career. And what a fella. Nice fella. Indeed he is. I've chatted to him on the phone only. I've never met him, but I've chatted to him a few times. In sport, let's take a look at some sport. Any Donegal people listening at the moment, news broke about 15 minutes ago that Donegal captain Michael Murphy has announced his decision to retire from inter-county football, ending a 15-year senior career. The Glen Swilly clubman says, "Our steps away with an All-Ireland winners medal, 3 Ulster titles, and having been named on the All-Star team 3 times. Murphy made his debut, senior debut that is, in 2007 and has been ever present in the county's set-up since then. So there we go. Congratulations to him. I wish him a good retirement. Only inter-county, so I'm sure Donegal people will see him at club level for quite some time. And staying with sport, former Galway manager Kevin Walsh has been confirmed as coach of the Cork senior footballers at a meeting of the county board yesterday evening. The appointment, initially flagged last month, was last night confirmed. to County Board delegates, with Sean O'Halpine also confirmed as a new member of the Cork Minor Hurling Management Team. Walsh is a heavyweight addition to John Cleary's management team, having guided Galway to 2 Connacht titles in 2016 and 2018, leading them to an All-Ireland semi-final appearance in the latter campaign. He previously managed Sligo between 2009 and 2013, securing back-to-back promotions in the Alliance League and claiming the scalps of Mayo and Galway in the 2010 Connacht Championship. In a stellar inter-county career spanning from the late 80s to the mid-2000s, Walsh won 2 All-Ireland titles with Galway in 1998 and 2001, picking up 3 All-Stars along the way as well. Cork boss Cleary, who initially assumed the role on an interim basis in 2022 following Keith Ricken's illness, was ratified as senior manager on a 3-year term in July. Currently operating in Division 2, Cork is without a Munster Senior Football Championship title since 2012, and in the most recent campaign, Cleary guided the side to a first All-Ireland quarter-final appearance since 2016, following qualifier wins over Louth and Limerick. So we wish the Cork hurlers good luck in that as well, and wish everybody well in their new appointments. Will I take a track? I will. And is there a reason I'm taking this particular track? What track am I taking? No, there isn't. Is George ready? Will we do it so, will we? All right, we'll do it the G2. All right, I'll do a quick break, come back to me so in a minute, and we'll get ourselves all sorted.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Talk Radio Europe.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
As the G20 summit is underway in Bali, I'm delighted to say that we're joined now by George Lee for the G2 summit. George, how are you?
And this one, Ger, by the way, is absolutely and totally environmentally friendly. It's been
carbon neutral, is it?
Carbon neutral.
And listeners are saying, oh, they're at it already. Might be time for the BBC. Anyway, George, good to talk to you as always. And you're keeping well, I hope. The last time we spoke on the air was the 27th of September. So time flies, doesn't it?
It does. A lot of water under that Shannon Bridge since then.
I know. Listen, it's always nice to have a giggle and a laugh, and we generally do when we get together for a chat. But we're going to start with bad news, and it's probably the biggest news in Ireland because early on Monday morning, cervical check campaigner Vicky Phelan died at Milford Care Centre in Limerick, a facility that you are very familiar with, and the people of Ireland and further afield have been giving their loss, or have been grieving her loss since the news of her passing came. And over the past 2 days, tributes have come from all corners. Everybody wants to pay tribute to Vicky Phelan, George.
They do, Ger, a very brave lady, 48 years of age, far too young to die. Has put her heart and soul very much into becoming a campaigner. Very, very clearly, Vicky Phelan said that she did not want politicians wringing their hands over her death when it came, and the inevitability of that and the bravery with which she fought it to the very, very end is amazing. And she spoke about her daughter, I think Amelia is her name, and how Amelia became the focus of her entire life. We can talk about cervical check and we can talk about all of the problems, but at the end of the day here, there's a 48-year-old woman dead. There's a family that are grieving. There's somebody that has captured the hearts and minds of the entire country. And look, I do think it was fitting that President Michael D. Higgins led the tributes to Vicky because he's kind of above politics in the position he's in now. In fact, he said that she had made an enormous contribution to Irish society, and he thanked her tireless efforts. He said that anybody who had the privilege of meeting her would have been struck by the powerful inner strength and dignity with which she faced her illness. And look, it's not for me to say the rights and wrongs, but we have a health system that's creaking at the seams. And if there was one thing that would be a fitting legacy to her, it would be that that people would have more of a say in that health service, and that the dignity would be afforded to people. And it also struck me as somebody who worked in palliative care, as you know, for quite a number of years. And as you mentioned, she died in Milford Care Centre. It struck me that the model of best practice that I experienced, and that I worked through, I suppose, the establishment of during my time in Milford in palliative care, that it was nice that Vicky Phelan, in her last illness, would have experienced a very positive element of our health service. And I have to say, and I've been through it with members of my own family as well, that the dignity that palliative care and hospice care gives to people in their final days, and not just in their final days, but right the way throughout their illness, is wonderful. And if there's one part of our health service that actually works, I think it is the palliative care services.
We have spoken, George, on the programme a number of times about other campaigners who have passed away down through the years, and we've paid tribute to them. But I think for this particular lady, even though she's a native of County Kilkenny originally, she came to Limerick to study at UL and has made Limerick her home. And the Limerick people can be criticised for an awful lot of things, but the one thing that we Limerick people do is we gather together at a time of trouble and strife, and we support each other. And outsiders look at that as a criticism, but inside it's the strength that we have. So no doubt Limerick people will be giving Vicky a phenomenal send-off.
Well, they've actually asked for a very private funeral, Ger, so I don't think that's going to happen. But I
don't mean people on the streets. I mean just the love and
her legacy, the legacy and the living memory, I suppose, that will be there of Vicky will be there forever. And I think people will remember her. And it comes so quickly on the death of that other great campaigner, Lindsay Bennett, in the last couple of weeks as well. And my thoughts when I heard the news, my thoughts went immediately to, of course, Charlie Bird as well, who, of course, both Charlie and Vicky, in a strange sort of way, life has thrown them together through their illnesses. And it must have been an enormous blow to Charlie as well, because I'm sure that it just focused his mind. And we need to keep these people in our thoughts and prayers as well. And anybody that is suffering with a terminal illness, or an illness that's chronic and is ongoing. I think things like this affect all sorts of people in different ways. And it's not just Vicky. I think it's everybody and people that are listening to us now, just to know that there's love and care, and that people actually do care about you and think about you.
It was before we leave it was ironic, because you mentioned that Vicky herself had said, look, I don't want politicians leading tributes and so on and so forth. But the news broke on Monday morning, and I happened to be listening to RTE, to the Claire Byrne programme, as I was working in the studio, and she was talking to the Taoiseach at the time, and you can just imagine the piece of paper being handed over the desk saying, Vicky Phelan has died, so we need to talk about this when we're finished talking about the business of government. So it was kind of ironic that one of the first public tributes actually came from the Taoiseach, wasn't it?
Yeah. And there was a lovely piece on Primetime last night as well, where during the last general election, she was asked to do a piece on Primetime. If I were Taoiseach, what would I do?
All right.
And it was a wonderful piece that she did. And, she said that she would attempt to give dignity to everybody, and particularly to women, and to empower women and to empower the health service. And look, I think people need to sit up and take notice. And I know there is a bill going through the Dáil at the moment, which will be very much a Vicky Phelan bill. And hopefully that's the first of many.
All right. Well, I think at this stage, all we can say is Arieste, go Reva Hanam Dealish, may Vicky Phelan rest in peace. Let's move on, George, and see what else we're going to tackle on the programme. These stories are stories that people in Ireland are talking about. And while this is not an Irish story, we woke up this morning to the news alerts from many Irish news outlets announcing Donald Trump's third attempt to be president of the United States. We will, like the rest of the world, George, be watching this campaign closely. Do we have the heart for a third campaign from this fellow?
I was just thinking in the last story we spoke about a previous job I was in. In this one, we can refer back to one of your escapades in the past in a Trump in a Trump facility as well.
Oh, yes.
But we won't even go there, Ger.
No, not at all.
You were his Steve Bannon at one stage, I know that. Yeah.
That's right, yeah, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, look, Donald Trump, I've been following this, I'd say he couldn't contain himself last week during the elections. He had to just kind of let people know I'm going to be making an announcement on such and such a day. And by the way, you can all come to Mar-a-Lago and spend a fortune on getting
and play golf.
And play golf there as well where you're at it. So there was a judge of the PR stunt about it as well. But yeah, look, I have been following this one very, very closely. And of course, a lot of American friends. And as you know, there's a few American listeners as well that we have on this. And I was following it pretty much overnight as well and listening to it. The Republican Party seems to be rent in two, if not in five, at this stage. And there seems to be a bit of a realization coming, I think, in some of the moderates within the GOP that there is that Donald Trump may not be the best thing for them. Mm-hmm. And that, all of what is going on and has gone on hasn't played out well with the great American public. And I think, the red wave that didn't even become a red ripple, the midterms, I think has probably put people on the back foot within the GOP as well. And that their thought process now is Trump the best thing for the party? I'm tempted to mention Albert Reynolds once again with
bursting up the party.
Favorite outburst where he's like, "You'll bust the party."
That was Jerry Collins, wasn't it?
Jerry Collins,
yes.
But yeah, look, Donald Trump is one of these guys that polarizes people very much. Everybody has an opinion on him. Do the Republicans actually want him, Ger? That's another question, I suppose.
Will he run if he doesn't get a nomination from? Firstly, I suppose the question should be asked: is he too big for the Republican Party not to have him? Number one, or number two, if he doesn't get a nomination, will he run himself as an independent?
Well, if he does, I think it'll be curtains for the GOP anyway, because he will split the vote completely. And I don't think the only reason he would do that would be to take out his frustration on the Republican Party. And it would be him throwing the rattler over the pram. But again, he's capable of doing that. The other side of it is that, there are some very strong candidates now emerging from a Republican point of view. And one that I've been watching him for a while, is Ron DeSantis, who's the governor of Florida. And quite interestingly, bearing in mind now that Trump's property is in Miami Beach in Florida as well. I mean, DeSantis won every county in Florida in the gubernatorial election recently. And there was a fairly strong Democratic candidate up against him. He has taken on Disney, amongst other employers in Florida in the last while. The guy has a head on his shoulders, and yet is radical enough to be a little bit closer to the Trump thought process than most of the moderates in the GOP. So it could be just bringing it back a little bit, dialing it back a small little bit from where Trump is towards the centre. And he could be a very, very good candidate. And I think he would give Biden a run for his money. That's if Biden runs. And I certainly don't think that if Biden doesn't run, that Kamala Harris is strong enough to run. She seems to have disappeared completely after fantastic press at the very start. So, Donald Trump, his behaviour after the 2020 election, some people are saying that maybe that this run is as a result of that he's, that this is just to put up a smokescreen between him and any inquiries that are ongoing.
That's the other side of it, yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. I know that the authorities have said that he will be dealt with like any US citizen, but really and truly, if he's either in the running or if he is president, it's highly unlikely that it will take the same. So this could actually be just something to avoid that or prolong it.
Absolutely, Ger. But look, the man is box office no matter what he does. So look, somebody said there's just over 700 days to the next election. So I think we're in for a little bit of a roller coaster.
It would be nice. It would be nice from a media perspective if the Democratic Party actually could put somebody up against him that would give him a decent run and give us, some good TV times and some good radio times.
Popcorn anyway,
Absolutely. All right. Listen, let's move on to something. And the question I suppose I have in relation to this, I started the program flippantly saying that the G20 summit is on at the moment, but the COP27 has been on for the last week or so, or just over a week, and it's not over yet. Does anyone really care? And whatever happens there, is the man on the street or the woman on the street going to be able to equate that to what we need to do to save the planet?
Well, I flippantly said to you at the start that we were carbon neutral as well, Jeremy.
Yeah, true.
I saw a tweet over the last couple of days which showed that over 800 private aircraft arrived into Sharm el Sheikh, for
to tell us to take our bicycles to work.
You have to question that. And look, I know you can be flippant about it. And if they were going to be achieving something magnificent, on the back of it, you'd say, yeah, look, we can live with this. I was listening again to a show on late last night on RTE Radio, and Barry Cowan, who can be very straight in his comments, would be of course Brian Cowan's brother, was asked the question as a government TD as to whether Eamon Ryan had brought 55 staff with him to COP27, and the answer was that no, he hadn't. He had brought 12, but that the Irish delegation had 55 in it. and you kind of say, okay, so the president just kind of turned up and bought ice cream, was it, or whatever, and there was a titter about that. But look, is it going to achieve anything? Have the previous 26, I think, listening again to the commentary on it, somebody mentioned that there have been 2 of them that have actually been worthwhile in having over 26. So will this one do anything? Will it be a whitewashing exercise? And will it make any difference? I do know, and I have to take my hat off, Micheál Martin made a very, very good speech at it. But how much of this is grandstanding? How much of it is re-announcing money that's already been announced? Look, the bottom line here is that the world cannot afford anything more than 2 degrees between 2030, and we are nowhere near it. I've been involved in a small little project over the last while around decarbonising, and funding has come through for a report to be written, and I'm kind of saying, all right, okay, so the funding has come. So when are we going to have the big announcement that we're going to put up? We're going to put up solar panels on some historic building, or something like that. That's going to absolutely and totally give us the power to take out whole areas of the city through solar power, for instance. And they're the big things that have to be done, Ger. I mean, the other thing, and this annoys me, all of these SEAI grants are available. And look, I was a leader in this because I put solar panels on my house in 2009. Before it ever became trendy.
They must have been half price at the time, were they?
Well, there was a grant, in fairness. But that's my point, Ger. The point is that if I wanted to go and put my PV, and I've looked at this, putting PV on my roof, and I know I'm speaking to a Spanish audience here, and you're probably laughing in terms of thinking of Ireland and PV, but actually we have apparently amongst the best conditions for PV in all of Europe. But if I were to do that, it would probably still cost me about €8,000, even with the grants and stuff that are available. But the government wanted to make a great statement. They could say to me, okay, look, these things are 20 grand's worth of panels or whatever they are. We'll give you 90% grant for it.
And in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't cost too much for the government to do that. Actually, you get your tax back. That's all that's happening.
Or the other side of it is that they could introduce some sort of a scheme that would say, okay, you're going to save, by having PV on your roof, you're going to save 150 or 200 euros on every electricity bill. We'll continue to take the amount that we're taking off you on your electricity bill, but we will discount your bill by that 200 euros until such times it's all paid off.
Okay. Yeah, something like that.
There's another idea, you know.
All right. Okay. Let's move on. I want to talk about something that we have seen the ads on television for. They've been playing for some time now. And that's for, buying a television, because that's the norm when the World Cup is approaching, or something like the European Championships or something. And just over a week away now, my question on this one is the focus on Qatar's human rights record overshadowing the football side of things as we approach the World Cup? What's been said back in Ireland? What are people talking about in terms of it?
It's actually very quiet. I would say if you went out and asked 100 people when the World Cup is starting and where it's on, I would say 85 of them couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't even know when it's kicking off, to be honest with you.
20th of November, George.
Is it okay? All right, I'll get that. I'll give you the Pringle.
Of course, for the last 4 or 5 years, you've been a GA fan now.
3 in a row, Ger. 3 in a row. And we're heading to the 5. The driver 5.
That's it.
Look, I do think it has been terribly overshadowed. I think even Sepp Blatter, who was the president of FIFA when Qatar was announced as the host nation, came out last week, and he said that it was probably not the best idea that they ever had. The human rights side of it is massive. I think we're also going to have serious issues as regards heat, because playing it in Qatar that hour of the year, I just know it's like playing it in Qatar at any hour of the year is nuts. I uniquely, I suppose, have experienced soccer being played in heat, because for the famous Irish game that was played in Orlando in 1994 between Ireland and Mexico, which was the one that you'll remember that John Aldridge absolutely lost it. And I was there, and there was 105 in the stand that day. It was just nuts. Okay. It was nuts playing it in that sort of heat, and the humidity that day was incredible as well. And actually, it did give a bit of an assistance to Mexico, because obviously they were used to playing it in
those conditions.
But let's go back to the core here. Yeah, look, the Qatar's human rights record is dreadful. Their treatment of women, and we started off talking about Vicky Phelan and all of that. Their treatment of women is dreadful. The abuses that have been highlighted. Now, I don't have proof of this, but from listening to the media reports, the abuses of the workers have been incredible, and there's been an awful lot of people have died in building the various
stadia. Yeah, all right. Okay.
So, look, you asked me what Ireland thinks. That's pretty much what I'm hearing.
All right. I'm going to stay with soccer if I can, George, because co-hosting Euro 2028 could secure €361 million boost for the Irish economy. That's according to the government chief whip, Jack Chambers, following yesterday's announcement that the cabinet approved Ireland's bid to co-host the tournament alongside England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Do you think it's something that can actually happen?
I think it is, because there's only one other country going up against us, and that's Turkey. Yeah. And look, it'd be lovely to have it here. It'd be lovely to see it here. There's something in the back of my head that says that we had one secured, or there was something about to happen, but that COVID stepped in at the middle of it all. But maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, look, it'd be lovely to do it. I think we have the stadia, in fairness, with Croke Park and with the Aviva. And of course, it's lovely to see that Croke Park is still on the agenda there, and that follows on, I suppose, from Munster Rugby playing in Páirc Uí Chaoimh last week as well. Now, that didn't go down terribly well in Limerick, but again, look, it was just nice to see it as well, and it's nice to see that, that in this day and age that the various sporting codes can get on with each other.
We spoke a little earlier on, just a few moments ago, in fact, about the electricity and various things like that. And this morning I see that SSE Electricity has confirmed that it expects the business to forego all profits this financial year as it provides support for its domestic customers during the cost of living crisis. Is this a public relations stunt, George? Is it a genuine effort on the part of the company to actually give something back? Or is it just I'm too cynical? What is it?
Yeah, just look, I mean, I looked at this, first of all, and the first thing that came to my mind was, this is a public relations stunt. On the other side of it, I suppose, Ger, that you'd have to look at it and you'd have to say whether it is or whether it isn't, if people benefit from it and if it gives people peace of mind somewhere along the line. I mean, SSE Electricity provides energy to more than 700,000 homes and businesses across the entire Ireland.
All right, okay.
Actually, they're almost unique in that they're both a northern and southern company. But like everyone else, they've raised their prices, electricity up 35%, gas up 39% in October. And, like me, I suppose the rest of the country are just dreading to see what the next ESB bill or power bill is going to happen. And I'm going around like the glimmer man at home, roaring at everyone and anyone that I see that's left on the light and asking them, do they really think I'm running Ardnach Russia power station? And I'm getting myself an awfully bad name at home over this. But, the other side of this is that the profits that they're foregoing, they made an operating profit of 17 million, up from a loss of 3.4 million the same time last year. So my heart bleeds for them. That's 20.4 million of a difference in 12 months, But look, if this sparks off a similar public relations war with the other companies, well, then it has to, and it benefits anybody. Well, then I suppose it has to be a positive thing, And they've probably got in here on first leader advantage by announcing it first.
Indeed, and as you said, if it does alleviate some pressure for some people, it is to be welcomed, whatever the motive behind it is. We're going to finish, George, on a good story. A nice story, and one that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago even, on the programme. A 10-month-old wallaby who swam more than 100 metres to escape from his island home has been recaptured after living for 4 months in the wild. The wallaby, whose name is Joey, has been reunited with his mother in County Waterford.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more cynical you get.
Tiny kangaroo down sport.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things come to my mind here. First of all, it's the most unimaginative name that I've ever heard.
Indeed, yeah. I was looking at that as well.
Tell me, is a wallaby a kangaroo?
I think so. I think it's kind of like a kangaroo, all right, yeah. Hang on a second now, and I'll have a look at it there on the interweb,
I know the Australian rugby team are called the Wallabies.
That's right. Hang on a second now, George, and I'll have a quick look.
Or is it some class of a wannabe kangaroo? Oh, sorry. But just while you're Googling frantically, just to say that the Joey was brought from a farm in the UK to settle in the grounds.
He's very like a kangaroo.
Okay, and this is a 16th century resort, and the Fitzgerald family own it, and it sits right on an island in the River Shore. This part of me even says, what were they doing with the wallaby on the grounds of the castle? The zoos are fine, and look, zoos are able to manage animals, and they're there for husbandry, and there's all sorts of things go on, breeding programs, and extinction and all of that. But really, should we have a kangaroo in a private estate? Anyway, look, that's leave that alone. Look, it's a lovely story. He was spotted regularly, apparently, around Faith Lake, which is famous for its golf course as well, on the banks of the River Shore over the past 4 months. They successfully recaptured him yesterday using nets, and he was returned to his run in Waterford Castle, where his mother is. I hope he gets on with the mother and that he wasn't running away from her.
I think his mother's name is Sheila. I think so. I think that's what they called her.
He said they were terribly original with their
well, for the animal lovers, it's a nice story.
It is a nice story. And look, it's good that he's safe and that he's back in safety as well. But what he's doing in Ireland.
Come here, before I let you go, I mentioned earlier in the programme that next week I'm going to be talking to Mick Handley about his new album, which is called Marathon. And Mick is always a great character to have a chat with. And I know that you and he come from the same street in Limerick.
Yeah, and he and I, of course, all went to the same school, which is lovely as well. CBS on Sexton Street, and and look, the Hanleys were a fabulous family. His mum and dad were lovely people, and I know my own parents were quite friendly with them as well. And they would have grown up on St. Patrick's Road, which is, I suppose, about 100 yards or 150 yards from where we grew up down the road. And Paddy, his dad, was a lovely, lovely man, and of course David, his brother. Was a very, very illustrious and probably the best broadcaster, one of the best broadcasters of current affairs that Ireland ever produced. Just lovely to do it. And I've met Mick on one or two occasions. I read his biography, which was a magnificent book. And the other thing that I always love is when I'm listening to his music, that he's very personal in his writing, and he's featured his dad and his mum and his family in quite a number of the songs that he's written. But I do know that new album is super as well, and it would be great, Ger, if you could play something from it.
I will. The fact that you've mentioned the school, I'm not going to play Damaged Halo, which is the second track on the album, because the school has now been identified. So let's take a different track. George Lee, as always, a pleasure, and thank you kindly for joining us for a G2 on this November's Day, and hopefully it's not too cold in Ireland at the moment.
Pleasure as always, Ger. First frost last night.
1, 2, 3, 4. I recall your crazy gait, your crazy hair, your coat unfurled. One step forward, 2 steps back, railing at your blasted world, and asking your forgiveness now. I'm haunted by the thought I could be so spineless and so easily bored. Forgive me, Shorty Jackson, and never meant to be your taunter and tormentor. What put the heck's on me to seek you out and find you on my way from school? Forgive me, Shawnee Jackson, I never meant to be that cruel. We children are no innocents. From birth we seem to know the rules. Stumble and we'll fall on you with a will. We have the tools. Your mind a mess from God knows what, emboldened by the pack. I found my own dagger and joined our crude attack. Forgive me, Shawnee Jackson, I never meant to be your taunter and tormentor. What put the heck's on me to seek you out and find you my guilty plea.
There's a nice kind of message in that, insofar as it's himself, Mick Handley, writing a song asking for forgiveness. That was a man. Shawnee Jackson was a man that was had some mental health issues. And when Mick would have been growing up, mental health issues wouldn't have been as important as they are now, and wouldn't have been as recognised. But himself and a couple of the lads from school, being boys, doing what boys do, used to give this lad, poor old Shawnee Jackson, a bit of a tough time. And there's a song asking for his forgiveness from the current album from Mick Handley, which is called Marathon. And we played not just that song, we played a track from the album because you heard what George said. Thanks a million, George. We do go on, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for that. Now, speaking of that, yes, Mick will join me next week on the programme. Looking forward to that conversation. And going back to PJ Curtis, and PJ sent me a note, a lovely note, about the banjo. And he wrote something about the banjo and about its origins and about its introduction to Ireland. And he sent it to me. I hadn't seen it before. I haven't read it, obviously, but I'm looking forward to doing so over the next couple of days. Thanks a million for that, PJ. But it also reminds me to tell you that if you haven't heard it, there's a song that was recorded about 30 years ago by Willie Nelson called You Can't Play a Sad Song on the Banjo. And I've mentioned it a number of times on radio, so I may have mentioned it on this programme. If you get a chance, Google the song and take a listen to it. It's lovely. Willie Nelson, You Can't Play a Sad Song on the Banjo. No, you can't. No. Or maybe you can. Maybe you can, yeah. Anyway, so there we go. I also want to say a big thank you to Jose Antonio Sierra. Antonio is our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor, and I got to visit with Antonio on Saturday and spend a couple of hours sitting on the beach. And we had some lunch, and it was lovely. So lovely to see you, Antonio, and that you're doing so well. Delighted. And look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. And he, as I said, is our cultural advisor, Spanish-Irish cultural advisor on the programme, and works tirelessly for it. And it's much appreciated. But again, another lovely couple of hours spent in his company. I'd say the Taoiseach is ripping mad. I'd say he is. Why? Because Russia has banned entry to Taoiseach Micheál Martin and more than 50 other top officials in response to Western sanctions over Ukraine. Among those listed are Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, Minister for Foreign Affairs Simon Coveney, and Minister for Finance Pascal Donoghue, as well as a number of other key officials and lawmakers. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that the measures against the 52 figures were taken following Ireland's support of EU sanctions against Russia. Acting under orders from Brussels, Ireland is conducting an aggressive anti-Russian propaganda campaign, said a Foreign Ministry statement. The statement said that Ireland had been seeking to curtail bilateral cooperation with Moscow. Western capitals have slapped Russia with a slew of unprecedented sanctions over its offensive in pro-Western Ukraine. A statement from Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, in response to the anti-Russian course of the Irish government, which unconditionally supports the unilateral restrictive measures introduced by the European Union against Russian citizens, aimed at attempts to isolate our country internationally, a decision was made to include 52 key representatives of the leadership and politicians of Ireland in the Russian stop list. There we go. Badge of honour now at this stage, I would imagine, wouldn't it be? Definitely. I'm excited about this next story that I spotted today. The 1926 census is to be digitised and made available online in a project carried out by the National Archives of Ireland. The project has been given €5 million in funding and is due to be published online in April of 2026. It includes over 700,000 individual return census sheets containing data from 26 counties. Now, the consensus in 1926, not the consensus, Ger, the census, that's what I meant. The census in 1926 was the first to be carried out following the foundation of the state. It includes information about population, age, occupation, religion, housing, and Irish language. The 1926 census is currently stored in 1,344 boxes at the National Archives of Ireland, and to be working with the CSO on the project. Minister for Culture Catherine Martin said that she was confident that the digitisation of the census will be complete ahead of the 100th anniversary of the 1926 census. Why do I keep wanting to say consensus? It is my firm belief that census records and other genealogical records should be easily accessible and provided free of charge to the public, she said. Given the success of the digitised 1901 and 1911 census returns, I'm sure that the 1926 census will be equally as popular and have a significant global reach once realised and released. The census is a fundamental part of our national heritage and collective knowledge. Indeed it is. I remember when the 1901 and the 1911 census was released, bearing in mind that Ireland was unified at that stage. It was a united Ireland. And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, came from Armagh. And it was lovely to be able to see his name there as an infant. And in 1911, you could see his name there again. And we did likewise for my other grandparents and my maternal grandmother as well, who came from County Wexford. My paternal, I should say, who came from County Wexford. And it was great to see all of those people who were born just before or just after or just around 1901. Nice. Yeah. So looking forward to the 1926 census. Time for some music, I think. Absolutely. And there's a reason why I'm playing this next track, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. Maybe it's just, oh yeah, that's right. This is the one I wanted to play, and took a listen to it a little earlier on today, and I liked it quite a lot.
And
nice. That is a lady by the name of Tracy Bauer and a song that's called Silence Crawls, new music from her. Took a listen to it earlier today and said, yeah, that's definitely going on the list. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. The US midterm election result will not affect US attitudes to the Northern Ireland Protocol. That's according to the Minister for Foreign Affairs. He was talking earlier on today in Washington, Simon Coveney, and he said that there was bipartisan support for the EU and the UK reaching a negotiated solution. Following a meeting with the Friends of Ireland group in Congress, Mr. Coveney said, I think the message is very clear. Whether it's a Republican-controlled Congress or a Democrat-controlled Congress, the position in Ireland is not going to change. They want the issues linked to the Northern Protocol settled. Of course they do, because they're the sponsors of the Good Friday Agreement. And I suppose if it was seen to fail, it would, they feel it would reflect badly upon themselves. They want, he said, the UK government to act responsibly to protect a peace process and to respect deals that have been agreed in the past. But they also expect that the Irish government, the EU and the UK government will be able to work together in partnership to try and resolve many of the issues in the coming weeks through pragmatism, through flexibility and through a willingness to compromise, Mr. Coveney said. Mr. Coveney also said the Irish government was not surprised at being targeted by Russian sanctions, which we just mentioned a few minutes ago. This is something that we're not surprised at. He said Ireland has taken a very clear position on this conflict. We think that Russia is breaking international law, breaking the UN Charter, he said. He believed that it would not have been credible for Ireland to avoid taking a stance against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So there we go. That's what he had to say in Washington, and we wish him well with his journey to Washington. Hope all goes well. Can I say a big thank you to James Lawless for talking to me in the first hour of the programme. James spoke to us about his new book, which is called Letters to Jude. Interesting to hear, and it's a good read. I have started it, haven't got to the end. It'll take me a while, particularly seeing as the book is actually in Ireland, and I won't be home for a while. And thank you to George Lee, my old pal, for joining me as well on the programme. As always, a big thank you to Antonio Sierra, our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor, as I mentioned to you before I played that last track. Thanks a million, Antonio, for the work you do on the programme. Now, the BBC is coming up after the news at 9 o'clock, and the BBC will be with you right through until tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock when Dave is in for Daybreak with Dave. And from 8 to 10. From 10 until 12, it's Giles Brown. From 12 until 2, we go to Cologne in Germany. Stephen Ritson for Europe Today, 2 to 4. Selena will be in. And from 4 to 6, it'll be Hannah until 6 o'clock when Bob is in for the hour. For me, Ger Sweeney, look after yourselves during the week. Thanks for your company. Do hope you've enjoyed the programme as much as I did. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.